Right. Hi, Fergus. How are you today?
I'm great, thanks, Cindy. Great to see you looking so young and bright and pert, because I've only known you 12 years and you've got younger every year.
I know it's the cream I use, but having said that, you're the vocal consultant, and we're here today to actually find out how to use our voice for blab and business, and why it's actually important to actually use it to get better business and better blabs. So over to you.
Okay, thanks. I'd like to quickly drop in some brownie points about me so that people know that they can listen to me, because there's a reason that I am a vocal consultant, a communications consultant. And it isn't because I've read a book or 10 books. It's because I was first on the radio in 1955, when my brother and I made our own radio show. And my father was on what was called the Today Show at the time on the radio, on what is now Radio 4, but then it was the BBC Home Service. And he was one of their presenters, and he let my brother and me use his own tape machine, which obviously cost him a fortune. I was 4.
And so you was pre-runners to YouTube then, really, and podcasting.
Yeah. Well, what happened? My brother and I made this Christmas show doing all sorts of singing, and Amanda Miller had the caterpillar, and it was ridiculous. It was really bad. But he then, in his wisdom, put it on the BBC radio show, this important radio show, in the morning at about 8:10. And of course, everybody went, "Oh, these two boys, they're so sweet. It's so wonderful. Can we have them again?" And so he interviewed us regularly. And I started doing voiceover work for the BBC from the age of 4. And then, to go in quickly, there was an actor's strike when I was about 8. And I thought, okay, well, I want to be an actor or a scientist. Now, the thing is, this is an 8-year-old, remember? And this was all recorded as well. And I've got the recordings, believe it or not. An actor, if there's a strike, is going to starve to death, whereas a scientist can keep inventing stuff. So therefore, I'm not sure which I want to be. But then I got chosen to be the star of a film. I'd done lots of radio and TV stuff anyway by then. At the age of 11, I was chosen to be the star of the most expensive film ever made in Britain to that time in 1962. And it was called Sammy Going South, and I was Sammy. And it had Edward G. Robinson, who a lot of people would have heard of, Harry H. Corbett, which a lot of English people would have heard of, and it was the Royal Film Performance in 1963. Now, to get in quickly as why people should listen about the voice, I was chosen for the role, but I, apart from my little voice when I was 4 and 5 and 6 and speaking terribly like this on the radio, I went to a local London school, and so I picked up a London accent, didn't I? And so I was Cockney a bit, wasn't I? To speak like all the other lads. So I was sent to Cicely Berry, who's now Dame Cicely Berry, for voice coaching to make me sound right for the American market, because otherwise, bless you Americans, and I hope lots of you are on here, you're not very good with a real Cockney accent. You find it very hard. You can do the Dick Van Dyke, "Oh, I'm climbing up the chimney," but you can't take a real Cockney accent from London because you can't understand it. Okay.
Neither can we.
That's true. Well, I grew up with it, didn't I? I grew up with it, didn't I? Anyway, and funnily enough, when I was in the Royal Shakespeare Company later on, I was actually doing a Cockney accent as the boy in Henry V, which was quite easy. And then I'd make another. So anyway, I was trained in using the voice by Cicely Berry, who started training in 1947, training people. And so obviously I learned all those techniques that she taught me. I then was a film star. I recovered. Don't worry, everybody. I did recover from being a boy star, a child star. Really, I got over it. I did. I remember there was a time I walked into a shop once and a man was rude, and I thought, I could buy this shop and sack you. Now, that's pretty nasty for a 14-year-old to be saying, but it was true. Anyway, I was an obnoxious brat at times. We all were. I got over all of that. And then I was in the Royal Shakespeare Company. Oh, and I did get a couple of letters from this boy who'd written a musical. And he wrote these handwritten letters, and he went to St. Paul's, Westminster, and he was probably in the choir. He was terribly posh. And he said, "I've just written a musical, and I'd like you to be one of the stars of it, if you could just get back to me." So I ignored it, of course. And then I got another letter from him. "My musical's coming out at the West End soon. It's going to be a great success." So I ignored him again, and I just sent him a photo of me with "Best wishes, Fergus McClelland" on it, because I was very wise. Can anyone guess, not just Cindy, because I think Cindy's guessed already, can anyone else guess who this writer of musicals was who I turned down, who was 17, whose first musical was... Come on, somebody, quick, say. Otherwise, I'm going to have to say it.
Not one of the great ones.
Yeah, I'm afraid so.
Well, you blew that one then, didn't you? Is that when
Yeah.
you actually started
Yes,
doing your voice?
well done. Fertility expert needs a prize. Yes, Lloyd Webber, Andrew Lloyd Webber. I still got his letter this day.
And so did Johnny. So
yeah.
2 people. So well done.
Frisbee, what makes me excited about Blab is the immediate way that I can get feedback from you in the column beside. You can come in the room. I can talk with you. I used to do this on a radio station called Naked Radio about 15 years ago, and I was one of the presenters for 2 years for this. Now, why is the voice important? I had a girlfriend in America many years ago who was a nature doctor, doctor of naturopathy, and her master's was in clinical psychology. And she said, oh, come on, Frisbee. Yeah, come in. Sorry, yes. I know it's both of us, so I called you in. Okay. To finish my story quickly, because I want to say hello to Frisbee. So this girlfriend of mine in Pasadena said, Fergus, you should be a life coach. You should be charging for it. And I thought, well, I don't know what a life coach is, but it sounds really weak and weedy. I'd never heard of Tony Robbins at the time, 6'7", man. Hi, this is Tony Robbins. Right. I just thought it was like counseling. So anyway, she said, but you are helping people all over the world at the moment to communicate better. Why don't you do it for a living? So I became a so-called life coach, for which I was not at all qualified. And then some people said, well, did you go to Coach U or Coach University or Coachville? And they had all these questions. I said, no, I've just been learning all this NLP stuff and psychology stuff. And suddenly what I noticed after a few months, what people really needed was the ability to communicate more powerfully in their personal relationships and in their businesses. Now, given my background as an actor for way too long, before most people listening to this were ever born, probably before Cindy's parents were born, before they were zygotes. Anyway, I've been doing it since 1955, and I realized that because of the training I'd had, could show people how to be much more powerfully effective in their communications. Now, let me give you an example to everybody, and then I'll let Gary talk a bit. Sorry, Gary, hang on. Imagine your favorite film star, male or female, the one you really fancy, the one you think, oh my God, that person is so gorgeous. Oh. Right. Now let's translate that a bit. Let's say it's Marlene Dietrich, right? All smoky, black and white underneath the lamppost by the barricade. And you think, oh, she's so gorgeous. Look at that. But what if she had the voice of Olive Oil? Okay. Underneath the lamppost by the barricade. How quickly would she turn ugly? How quickly would you think she's got a big square jaw, she's an ugly German woman, she's got this weird voice, and we don't like her? And
so are you... Sorry.
No, go on.
I'm just jumping in. So are you saying that actually our voice can actually paint a picture, even without people seeing us, hence why you've got to be true to your own voice?
Yeah. And you've got to find your own voice. And there's reasons why lots of people don't understand and know what their own voice is. How many people listening here love the sound of their own voice? Okay. Now, I love the sound of my own voice, which is probably a bad admission for Cindy. I love the sound of my own voice because I can hear a recording of me and I know what you're hearing, because I can do a simultaneous translation in my head of my own voice, because I can't actually hear myself properly. Nobody can. That's where people have a difficulty with recordings. Yeah, Gary, come in, ask a question or something.
Hey, hi, everybody. It's nice to be seen and heard. Interesting what you're talking about, because I'm a performer. I'm a former world Frisbee champion. So I make demonstrations to schools and groups, and I bring people to the world of Frisbee and the world of play and juggling and everything, that my website and all. But the truth of the matter is, I find my voice when I'm speaking is a certain, timbre. Like, I'm not musical and I don't know how to protect my voice. But there are times where it's very strained because I'm going on and on and on, and trying to be heard. I tend at schools not to use projection, or headsets and everything, because I believe that the louder I am, the louder they can be. So I want them to hear me without, having a conversation beside them. And sometimes it works like magic and sometimes it doesn't.
Now there you are, Gary. You've hit the point. You've hit the nail on the head there. When you speak, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
Yes.
When I speak, without wanting to sound arrogant at all, I promise you, with full humility, most of the time it works.
Wonderful.
And it's not because I'm clever. It's not because I'm special. It's not because I've got any God-given ability. What I've done, I've learned the tools of how to speak. Now, I'm afraid I got cold, so I cough a bit. I think I've swallowed a frisbee, actually. I've got one stuck in my throat. Anyway, Gary, there are aspects of using your voice which will work for anyone, and I've been trained in them, and I can pass them on to you right this second, okay? One thing I would say to you, Gary, and I hope you don't think I'm being insulting at all, because I'm not.
I'm all ears.
Is that you're speaking from your throat, and your throat is closed.
Yeah.
So I can even do the American accent, but I'll be coughing in a minute if I keep speaking like... Actually, I went into Australian then. Anyway, Gary, what you're doing, you're holding your throat closed. So if you look at what the sides of my neck here.
Uh-huh.
Right,
it's hard to see, but I've been shown that before. I understand what you're saying.
So if you went as though you were about to strangle yourself with finger and thumb, right?
Yeah.
And you feel those muscles on the sides of your neck, right? They need to be relaxed at all times.
Relaxed.
Right?
Okay.
Those two strands of muscle on each side, they need to be relaxed when you're speaking. They can bounce slightly, but if they're tense like that, it will kill your voice after a little while. And also, the other thing you need to do is, that's one thing you need to do as a practice thing for everybody. Right? Another one is think of breathing, as in, if you were breathing on a mirror or a pair of glasses to clean them, you go, ha, ha. Okay. That's how open. Yeah. Ha. If you listen to my voice, you can hear that I'm virtually going, ha, all the time. Your voice needs to be from an open throat, right?
Right.
Because if it's open, it's not going to be strained, your larynx, and you won't lose your voice. You can keep talking forever.
Is that the difference why opera singers can keep going for 4 hours, and while many speakers, I've known them after 45 minutes, is like, give me the water or I can't talk anymore.
Yes.
And the next 3 days, they are sort of like absolutely stuffed. So
yes, you're dead right, Cindy. That's exactly it. Because if you think of breathing on a mirror and you think of opera singers singing 4 hours of a Wagner opera and they can still speak afterwards.
Right.
Yep.
And my father could rant at the entire family for 12 hours and then go to the BBC and record a book for the BBC. And I was always envious of that as a teenager, but obviously I had to learn to do it myself. Because if you're at the Royal Shakespeare Company in Stratford and you've got an audience of 2,500 and no microphone, you better be good at using your voice without any equipment, without straining your voice, because you're doing it 2 or 3 times a day sometimes. And so I learned the techniques the hard way. Okay. I learned it from professionals many years ago. But then if you think of the film which most people have seen, The King's Speech, Logue was a Shakespearean actor from Australia, very gifted, and he taught the king to use a sing-song in his voice. That is, I'll talk about that more in a different call when we do another blab. I'll tell more about that because I want to get people to just get some basics now. We can do these regularly and hopefully people will keep coming back and make this the biggest blab in the world. Yes.
Well,
you breathe
I was
in.
going to say, Robin has saying that she's actually sounding quite nasally. So I'm trying to sort of like say, come and jump in so she can do some of the exercises as well. Because I noticed when I did some of the things, because like you, Gary, I kind of close my voice, especially when I'm talking to the kids. I mean, nicely, of course.
Get in your bed.
No, it's the fact that they actually decided to play mermaids in the bathroom, and it took 3 days for the room to dry out. It's like great. But no, it's sort of like some of the techniques is very, very good. So well worth redoing again. But so what's the next? Anyway, I interrupt you, Fergus. Next exercise.
Okay. Yeah. The next exercise. Once you think of keeping your throat open and you're speaking as if you're singing.
I really got to run. Thanks, guys.
Okay. Yeah. Open your throat if you can, Gary. Okay. Speak to you soon.
Thanks.
Hi, Robin.
Hi. Now I'm very conscious of the fact that I'm so nasally since I said it.
No, it's a nasal voice it's a very strong Bronx thing. There's a voice coach I was talking to on here a couple of days ago who is a Jewish Bronx woman who's a brilliant voice coach, but you can hear she's nasal because she's Bronx. Okay, right. It's in there. Now that's cultural, and so don't be ashamed of it. It's part of your culture.
I don't know. I don't know that. So I think mine is more genetic than cultural.
No,
because
it's trained in. It's trained in.
And it probably is because my father's side of the family, there's lots of us, everybody who is bloodline on that. We have this really nasally voice and it's quite loud. And I noticed that I actually have these little etymotic earplugs that I put in. I have them for when I fly so I can actually, to block out like the plane noise, but I can still hear, because without them, I can't hear the pilot talking or anything. But when I put them in, my voice goes down so much quieter because I can hear myself louder, I guess. And people, it's really funny because all of my friends know that I'm not mad at any time somebody tells me to quiet down a little bit, because I know I talk loud, and especially when I get excited. But I put those in and I have people go, no, take those out. We like louder Robin better, of course, and it defeats the whole purpose.
Okay.
But so
I do exactly the same as you. Okay. The minute I hear my voice, I get quieter and quieter and quieter. And I'm from the
Midwest. So that's where I'm from. Not Bronx. I'm Midwest. I'm in Missouri. So, so what do you suggest for those of us who don't like our voice and we want it to sound less nasally and quieter?
Okay. The first thing, you've got a very good head voice, which is great. It means your voice is loud and it travels. Okay.
Yes, it does.
But so if you did a continuous tone like and pinched your nose repeatedly, and you do a perfect head voice. Okay?
Like that.
I felt like I'm drowning.
Yeah, exactly. With Robin, it's very extreme. Now, the alternative, the other voice that you need to develop much more strongly, because your head voice is very good. Now, that's family culture. It's trained in. It's you weren't born with it. You've all learned it in your family. Right. Okay, it's like Black American women, Black West Indian women, Black African women usually have deep, rich voices because of the culture. It's not because their bodies are different. It's because of the culture. Think of Whoopi Goldberg. Think of Maya Angelou. Yeah. Oh my God, Maya Angelou's voice is gorgeous. And Oprah Winfrey. And actually, by the way, Oprah Winfrey is an expert on Elizabethan poetry. Did you know that?
No.
She told Barbara Walters that she was, as a child, she used to learn lots and lots of 15th and 16th century poetry, and she'd recite them for her mother and her mother's friends as a small child. And every Monday she'd go into school and she'd do a recitation of what she'd been taught at church the day before. So she was a speaker by the age of 9 or 10. Wow. And so she developed a really good voice. By the time she was on radio and television, her voice was just a killer. She got a wonderful voice. Anyway, what people such as those do, and that's millions and millions of people all over the world, they speak from the chest. Okay. Now, you were just doing the nose pinching. If I do a deep note, I'll show you how to do that in a second. Right. If I was doing the nose pinching and doing a tone from my chest, you will notice nothing happens to it virtually. Ready? See? Now, if I do a head noise, so that's how you know whether you're in the head or in the chest. Now, the way to check if you're in the chest, and a great focusing point for everybody, and believe me, everybody, you need to do this. If you think of, take, let's say, 1 or 2 fingers of either hand and go to where your ribs join in the middle, right? So where the two sets at the bottom of, it's called your xiphoid bone, at the bottom of your sternum, where your solar plexus is. And if you go,
push them in at the same time. So
repeatedly. Now, that helps you to get focused down there. Now, if you do a lower note down there, right, if you just now, without palpating your sternum, but keep focused on that, because that's where you need your voice to come from. So you go, right, just like that. Come on, Robin, you can do it. Okay, brilliant. That's lovely. That sounded good. Okay, Robin, now do that and do the nose pinch, and you'll notice virtually nothing happens.
Okay. Oh, you're right. They did. Yeah, you're not like I thought you were going to be wrong, but it's exciting when you try something and they go, hey.
Yeah. So that's the thing to focus on. That exercise will help you to be resonant in your chest. And so it'll be balanced up with the head voice. Your head voice is fantastic, but you need the chest voice as well.
Well, what am I supposed to use the head voice for? I mean, it's great that it's fantastic, but it's annoying to a lot of people. And that's why.
Well, yeah, because you're using it on its own. That's why.
Okay.
You know? It should be about 30 or 40% max. It shouldn't be 90% or 95% of your voice.
What do you mean by that? And obviously, I mean, somebody's already said that your voice really projects very well. So how could you use it to maximum effect for what you do? What is it you do, Robin? Sorry.
Social media.
I've seen you before, Robin. I saw you the other day. I was in a room with you. Yeah.
And I think that's one of the reasons that it's kind of coming for, I do speak at conferences and events and that, and do a lot of, local meetups and things like that, but doing more video. I'm starting to do a lot more video now. And I'm going to throw this in as one other thing for you. I'm actually in the middle of getting dentures, right? And I know that's going to change my whole way I'm talking, at least to start with. I'm going to have to learn how to do that. So if you have any tips you want to throw in on that too, I'm open to that.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, very good. And I will do in a second. Now, we were talking about people not liking the sound of their own voice. Very quickly, I'll tell you why. One, our mouth is in front of our ears.
Hi, Cindy.
So we can't hear ourselves very well. Two, we hear ourselves mostly by bone conduction. If people rub their cheekbones up and down like that, just rub your jawbones.
Without the mic.
Yeah. No, that's cheating. Okay. It's loud to you. I can't hear it. Right. But you can hear it loudly. Yeah. Because we hear mostly via bone conduction. And we've also got a very clever thing in our brains which cuts out the sound of our own voice. It's what's called a notch filter. It's so that we don't hear ourselves very much, so that we can hear people in danger, predators, and food on the way, right? So we need to hear those three things. And so our brain is tuned for those three types of sound from the outside, not from ourselves. And let's face it, in the last 300,000 years of development, we didn't have tape machines. We weren't recording and listening to ourselves electronically. So when we hear this strange thing coming out of a box, we're shocked because we've never heard it before. Now, what Robin's challenge is that her voice is very focused on a type of American accent. It's very like that. It's very nasal and hi, everybody. But if she just took it down here as well, which you can, because you did some beautiful deep notes then, Robin. You did some lovely deep notes. So if you practice doing that, touching the bottom of your sternum, that one will get your voice deeper. Now, when it comes to diction, what I would say is practice with tongue twisters. Like, for example, Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. If Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers, where's the peck of pickled peppers Peter Piper picked? And she's a thistle sifter.
Bravo.
She has a sieve of sifted thistles and a sieve of unsifted thistles. That is because she's a thistle sifter. Okay, so
that's going to help when I have to kind of relearn things, right?
Well, okay, you have to get the sharpness of words, because if you're using the deep voice, instead of being focused on the head voice all the time, once you start using the chest voice, you've got to enunciate more clearly. And then you become more generic, more worldwide. And I'd like to ask Fabrizio now, who's probably in Italy. Fabrizio Polli, hola, hola.
How are you doing? I'm doing fine. Yes, very good. I actually speak with a British accent because my mother was British, father Italian, so that explains the name and the accent.
Spaghetti bolognese.
But I can do the spaghetti bolognese if you want. And some pizza. Anyway.
Yes, sir.
What would you like me to do, Fergus?
I would like you. Notice, most people do this. Speak from the throat.
Okay.
Okay.
Is that
so,
am I speaking through the throat?
Yes, you are. Just like Rob. Robin's much more in the head, but you're speaking from the throat. And so I bet you do sometimes lose your voice if you have to speak for ages. Because you're
sometimes.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Imagine. Okay. Think Joanna Lumley. A lot of people won't have heard of her, but you have, I'm sure.
Okay.
Think of an open voice. Hi, this is Joanna Lumley speaking. Now, what she does, she keeps her voice totally relaxed. Okay.
I want that voice.
Well, it's very easy, Robin.
So is it like relaxing here, as you were saying before?
Yeah, definitely. And also,
talking from the bottom. Sorry, talking from the sternum.
From the bottom, not from the bottom, darling.
From the sternum,
Talking out of your ass is something completely different.
That's a different topic on a different day, Cindy. Okay, so it's focusing on keeping your voice down here. Now, it's not about doing it all the time. I go to the gym a lot, and I do some very heavy weight training. I'm proud of saying, but I'm not lifting heavy weights all day long. I'm doing it for an hour and a half most days in the gym. So I go to the shops and I pick up 18 or 20 kilos of bags, and it's nothing to me.
Yeah,
it's just ordinary everyday weights. But I have to do the weights in the gym to get the muscles strong enough to be effortless when I'm using them. And it's the same with these voice exercises. I don't expect people to go, hello, my name is Fabrizio, my name is Robin, my name is Cindy, my name is Evan Taxi. No, it's not about doing that. It's keeping your throat open as an exercise, just as an exercise, because then what will happen for you, and it'll happen for Robin as well, gradually, it won't be instant, because I train people, it takes 10 days of work, really, over a few months, or I do hourly training on Skype, and people come to me once a week for an hour. I give them some training, I send them away with exercises. And then a week later, I say, okay, let's see how you've done doing those simple exercises, because that's the only way to do it. You can't do it in a quick call like this. It's ridiculous. But what I'm trying to show people is that there are some of the techniques you can get from this. And the important factor of it in business and in life in general is that when you open your voice, it's the final arbiter for a buy. It's the final arbiter on a blob or a blab. Sorry. Now, imagine if Robin was doing a blobby blab.
I love calling them blobs. They're blabby blobs.
Okay. Imagine if Robin and Fabrizio were doing, and I know I've listened to Robin's content. Robin has got seriously good content. She's fascinating what she talks about social media. She really knows her topic. And I spent, an hour and a half listening to you the other day until the room closed and I had to go and do some work. No, it's embarrassing, this blab stuff, isn't it? But imagine if Robin and Fabrizio were doing a really important presentation about social media, and then say some top actor, I'm thinking of the English ones like Alan Rickman, but just let's think of a top American actor. Not Robert De Niro, Al Pacino. Yeah, okay, Al Pacino, whose voice is not particularly wonderful, but it's got presence.
It's definitely got presence.
Yeah. So if you've got Al Pacino and George, who all the women talk about with the grey hair, what's his name?
Clooney.
That's the man. That's the man.
Clooney.
He was right on the top of my head.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. I bet you wish he was. Anyway, leaving that to one side. Clooney is trained in Shakespearean technique, actually, because I saw him do a long Jay Leno show or something like that. He was trained in Shakespearean speaking, and so was Sean Connery, by the way. To reduce his Scottish accent, he was trained in the same sort of stuff I was trained in, because mentioning Sean Connery, most people have heard of him anyway, the first James Bond. He started off as a male model, a nude male model, and then he was a chorus line dancer in the West End of London, and he wanted to be an actor. And someone said, well, your Scottish accent is much too strong, and to learn to act, you need some Shakespearean training. So he went for voice lessons, and so did George Clooney. So let's say you've got an anonymous, not the real George Clooney, but someone with a voice just like his, who knows nothing about social media, and he's on in a different blab room or in the same blab room as Robin, who is a really serious expert on this stuff. Okay, who are people going to listen to and believe in? The one with the great voice or the one with the great knowledge? I'm afraid the voice will win over the knowledge, which is sad but true. But it's how we're built as human beings.
So are you saying? Sorry.
Yeah, go on, Cindy.
I know. I'm sorry. My brain is sort of like just racing so fast with what you've been saying. Are you saying then, if we can actually get the proportion right of using the lower part of our voice to rest, we can actually have a better and more deeper impact on the people that we're presenting to, irrespective of whether it's selling or just giving information? And if so, how much could we potentially increase our what's the word? Sort of like
market. How could we monetize our work?
No,
better?
we're not even
But you increase your
engagement,
value, and engagement. You increase all of those.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with looks. The better we look, unfortunately, we live in a very visual world, and it's that. But I mean, I think I believe the voice is more important because we can overcome the visual quicker than we can the audio. The audio sticks with us, I think, a little bit more.
I am a bit of a snob when it comes to voice coaches, I'm afraid.
Okay.
And I know about 6 or 8 in the world who I think are absolutely fantastic. And the funny thing is, we're all friends. Isn't that funny? Okay, so one of them is Dr. Lillian Glass. And what she did years ago, she took photographs of people who are very good looking, people who are quite plain looking, and people who are looking just ugly, really, right? So she took the 3 pictures and she put voices with those, right? And they said, oh, thank you, fertility. I love the fact that you love my chocolatey voice. Anyway, what she did, she took 3 different voices for each picture. 2 different voices for each picture. A really nasty voice done by an actor and a really rich, chocolatey, velvety voice by an actor, or the female equivalents, okay? And she got people to score the people's pictures on their attractiveness. And well, remember, all they can do is see a picture and listen to a short soundtrack, a few sentences. And what happened was that most of the, virtually all of the people, really, if it was the lovely voice with the ugly face, they said this person is a bit plain. If it was the ugly voice with the incredibly good-looking face, they'd say, pretty plain, a bit ugly. So the perception of the face was totally reversed by the sound of the voice. And I'll give you one of the reasons why, if I may tell a little story for everyone that goes back 100,000 years. Is anybody interested in a
Yes, we can listen to you all day. Oh my gosh, keep talking.
Yeah, keep going.
I have to say, a few years ago, I was on BBC Radio Scotland, and I just started off saying a few sentences, and the woman presenter said, I don't know what you said, but it was so beautiful, I don't care, I could listen to it all day. So that can be a problem sometimes. Anyway, let's think back. Let's say it's 150,000 years ago, and you are walking through the jungle, and you need to go from A to B, and then there's some trees that you're passing, and behind the trees, you can see the back half of a couple of lions, but you can hear that they're purring. Okay. So you just quietly keep walking, right? You think, okay, well, they're lying down. They're quite happy. Prrr, prrr. Okay, they're happy. They'll ignore me. I'll tiptoe past them. Okay. But what if they were really roaring? Even though you can only see their back legs and their tails, you think, okay, I'm going home now. And you turn around and run away. And if you bring it, right, let's bring it right up to date. Same thing for human beings now. And then I'll relate it to business and the business voice. You're walking past a building site and there's a chain link fence with a hole in it. And you can hear and see a couple of Doberman dogs lying down in there. And they're going, okay.
Family show.
You quietly walk past, okay? You just think, okay, I'll keep going from A to B past this chain link fence. Whereas if they're really growling and barking, you'll either climb a tree, climb the fence, or run home. Because the final arbiter is the sound. And as I said, Lillian Glass's experience with humans proved the same thing. And we can't tell much about a person because, as Robin wisely said just now, we can do anything about the way we look. We can put on a wig, we can dye our hair, we can wear a moustache or a beard, we can wear fantastic clothes, we can go to the gym and get a fantastic body, we can go on a diet. But that doesn't show who we really are. The voice is the sound of your soul, and it's either good or bad depending on your training. That's it, really.
Okay.
Because it doesn't necessarily sound like the inner you. Now, that's the important thing. You need to know that the voice that other people can hear is the voice in your head.
Right.
Fergus.
So can you give me so Fergus, can you give me some tips about what I could do to sort of improve any exercise
I'm gonna jump in on top of you, Fabrizio, for just a minute, because this is the reason I'm gonna jump out of the seat. But my question is Fergus, if you could talk about any videos, e-courses, regular books, e-books, anything that you've written that we can get a hold of to kind of, work on this training ourselves from your advice. And also, how do we get in touch with you if we want to take Skype voice lessons for you? So I'm going to log out after that question. And I'm sorry, Fabrizio, that's why I wanted to jump in on top of you.
I love that. Love that one, Robin.
Very good question.
Very good. Thank you, Robin. I didn't pay you to come in here, but I should have done. Okay. Hopefully you can still listen. Right. I'm Fergus at Vocal Trademark, as in the voice, vocaltrademark.com. The host of my website has wisely crashed at the moment. However, I will get emails. Great. I'm glad you're still listening, Robin. I will get emails. And I've got 6 CDs, 2 of which are double CDs, of voice training exercises. Now, people say I should write books on it. Yes, I've written various articles and I've written lots of e-zines. But given that the voice is so much of a sound thing, I've got the CDs for people to listen to the exercises I do on the CDs. And so if anybody writes to me at my Fergus@vocaltrademark.com email address, then I will send them details of my CDs and also give you some hints and tips really as well. And even maybe give you some free audio recordings of exercises, the top 10 tips of speaking in public. So if anybody wants that, I'm delighted to give those away. Because as I said at the beginning, give.
So can we do an experiment on me then and see if I can improve?
Okay. The first thing I want you to do is what Robin was doing and just do lower. Okay. Right. Now, if you notice, your throat is still closed. So imagine you're breathing on a mirror and go better. It's still a bit closed up because it's practice. It's okay. Here's a thought to go with it, Fabrizio.
Yeah.
Imagine the most beautiful woman in your life.
Yeah.
Don't tell me who she is because it might not be somebody close to you. It could be a film star. It could be your girlfriend or wife. Right. Imagine you're very close to her ear and you want to make her feel really good. Would you go, or would you go, That's it.
Yeah. Okay.
Because then everybody will get that.
Yeah.
They'll get that sound. Because that makes you more attractive to everybody.
And passionate. Of course. Yeah.
And so what you've got to practice as an exercise, as I was saying earlier, your sex voice. Robin, you're dead right. Now, here's another way of doing it. If you have a USB microphone like this one, which is a Rode NT USB.
Yeah, I've got one of those. I've got it just in the box over there.
Yeah, it's brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. And the great thing about it, because I've got microphones which are in huge boxes and they take you half an hour to set up, studio microphones, which I've done all my CDs with, and the quality is stunning. Yeah, Robin, I'm sure he does. Oh, my God. Yes, I'm sure he does listen to you more during those occasions. The especially exciting X-ray moments. Yes. Okay. Right. So if you listen with one of these microphones, you've got one, Fabrizio. Great.
Yeah.
Plug your headphones into the headphone socket on the microphone. Now, I use, when I'm doing professional recordings, like I might be doing 5 or 6 hour sessions, I want to hear zero latency sound of my own voice in my head. I might know the translation very well and I can get away with it. But if I'm recording a whole book, I really need to listen to myself live because that's the autocorrect. Cindy was talking about earlier and Robin was talking about earlier. When she puts the headphones in, Robin was saying, then she gets quieter because she's hearing the real sound of herself on the headphones. But the reason I'm talking about zero latency, which I don't mean to be technical, but you're hearing yourself immediately, right?
Yeah.
Immediately, exactly as everybody else is hearing it. Now, I do that when I'm training people all day. And yes, I do charge a fair amount of money, but most people aren't in London. So I train over Skype as well, a hell of a lot. And I'm very happy to do it. Oh, no, panting is not just noise online. It can be good exercise. Right? It's actually that's thank you. Actually, no, online it does actually work, because if Fabrizio learned to do like that with the throat open. Now, again, as I was saying about weight training, I'm not talking about you should be doing it all the time, because you would get arrested in the street, definitely. But and in business, it wouldn't really work. Hello, boss. I'm very happy to be here today. Does it? Oh, cynicism of Craig. There's a technical reason for that. And it also does make people's noses run and all their mucous membranes swell in their heads. Now, I'm not going to go into more detail, but it is a physical fact. When somebody gets very aroused, mucous membranes in the nose swell. Okay? Sorry, I'm an expert on this stuff a little bit. That's why I can read people by their voices. Anyway, so you practice doing the finger on the bottom of the sternum, going. Yeah, you see, it's better already, isn't it? Yeah. It's improved already. And
so I got to get my voice down here, then, and kind of speak more from down this end instead of.
That's your baseline. That's about 60% of your voice. It's not all of your voice. You need the mid-range and the high range as well. Robin has got a phenomenal high range, and it's very, very powerful. And when she was doing her bass sounds, they're very powerful as well. And it's practice to learn to use all three, the low, the middle, and the high.
Okay. So how long?
Yes,
how long?
Cynicism. It would be the bass in your voice. Sorry, Fabrizio. Yes.
Yeah. So how long would you think it would take me to get my voice balanced out then? As you were saying? About a month of practice.
Yes, about a month or two. It's interesting. I
always thought it was years and not a month.
Good point, Cindy. Thank you. If I go back to the King's Speech film,
thank you.
Logue started training the King in 1927, and he was still training him in 1952.
Wow.
Now the film makes it look like it's only a few months. No, it was years and years and years of sessions. Because Logue was a great Shakespearean actor, but he didn't have the advantage of high-quality headphones and microphones and Skype and being able to train the King for 1 hour, once or twice a week. He had to fit him in when he could and when the King wasn't busy. And you can improve your voice very quickly nowadays because there's technology around and there's a few people like me around. Now, the reason I'm saying a few people like me, I left acting, and before I was a coach of any type, I was an electronics engineer. And I worked with a friend who was an absolute genius, but I was very good at making high integration printed circuit boards. Okay. Very, very thin lines. And I was great at that, but he was the electronics genius. However, we knew people who came to us for work who knew nothing about electronics. And so they couldn't tell the difference between us and the man round the corner in the television repair shop, because we all had soldering irons. So they couldn't tell the difference between expert, genius, and beginner. They couldn't tell. And the only way you can tell is by results, literally. And lots of people do call themselves voice coaches and presentation coaches who actually aren't very good, because I know a lot of them, and Cindy knows some of the ones I know, and I won't name any of them, and one or two in particular, and Cindy's laughing now because we know a lot of the same people. We've known each other for about 10, 12 years. And people think that they can do something and they kid other people that they can, and people believe in them. That is dangerous in any form of coaching or training. And you've got to think, what are the results and how quickly are they achieved? Now, a month or two of serious practicing, either with my CDs or, let's say, 10 hours spread over 10 weeks, because I don't want to do anyone more than once a week. There's no point. Because if I spent an hour with you today, let's say one-to-one, and then did another day tomorrow, another hour, what happens is your bucket gets too full. And so what was in it yesterday falls out. So I like to do an hour, and the person has exercises and they practice for a week. And then the next week, I check that they've stuck. If those exercises haven't stuck, I'll do another hour of the same exercises. What I used to get wrong, I used to pile enormous amounts into a person for 6 or 7 hours and send them home. And their voice would be soaring. They'd know how to do it. They'd be able to do Shakespeare. 3 weeks later, it was gone because they couldn't retain it, because it's muscle memory. It's listening to yourself live and playing. Oh, I've got to get the power supply for my computer. So There's a short intermission for people to take rest breaks. I need to get power for my computer. I do not want to lose power. Okay, hang on a sec, everybody. I hate losing my power.
So, whilst he's just doing that, how long have you actually been speaking for, Fabrizio? And what main problems have you found with your voice with speaking?
Well, I mean, I tend to be a high energy person, so very rarely do I kind of lose my voice when I speak, because even though I put a lot of energy into it, I've still got energy in reserve to keep going. I mean, I've been speaking for a while, and as I told you the other day, I disappeared off the speaker circuit and then came back on again because I needed to get a bit more of a success story behind me. But yeah, I mean, I'm conscious that I need to improve my voice and get it a bit deeper.
Yeah.
Because I tend to speak as Fergus was saying, so I'm aware of that, and I know I need to work on it. So it's been good that I've been on this blab this evening to sort of kind of figure out what exactly I need to do to get that voice a bit further down here. So it's that's very good.
I've found that quite a few of the speakers I've worked with over the years, they actually find the problem comes not actually during, but it's later and it's afterwards. So up to 6-7 hours later, they're actually all hoarse, or they've got a cold coming or something else like that. So that's where I find Fergus is good, because with his training and just these simple techniques, especially relaxing the voice, talking more from the chest, you actually tend to keep your voice so you don't have that lag, like it's like jet lag or voice lag. The next couple of days afterwards as well. So yes, it's sort of like I know we were discussing and we were talking about it earlier, that the impact of having a good voice also for speaking and stuff can actually really be the difference between make and break, especially on the circuit, because unfortunately when you're putting yourself up there, you've got to keep an audience without them going, oh my God, no, I don't want to listen anymore. I'm going to go out. You
don't want to have like a high squeaky voice, and I agree. I mean, as Fergus was explaining before, that the sound of your voice is more important than your look.
Afraid so, because you can fake everything else. You can't fake your sound. Well, you can, but it doesn't work. Okay, I want to mention, Cindy's probably heard of this man.
Yeah.
There's a man called W. Mitchell, okay, and he's a very famous American speaker.
Yeah, isn't he something to do with he had something to happen in the war or something to him?
No. I'll tell you about him in a sec. Hang on.
Or is he the guy that had the accident and he got burnt?
And then another accident and he got paralysed.
Yeah, that's it. That's the one. Okay, yeah. Tony Robbins talks about him.
That's right. Well, because he's a great friend of Tony Robbins and Bill Clinton. Oh, what a surprise. Yeah. And he came on speech. He came on to do a speech at the Professional Speaking Association convention a few years ago when I was a fellow there. I've left the PSA now, but it's a very good organization for professional speakers. And W. Mitchell came, and he also recommended a book I've written, which I didn't mind. He came to the convention in his wheelchair and was wheeled onto the stage. And his voice was utterly gorgeous. And he said, have any of you ever been in prison? And 150 people sat there absolutely silent. Now, I won't say who it was, but there was one person, I think Cindy knows who I mean. There was one... I was there. No, it wasn't Cindy. There was one professional speaker who sort of was interested in being a speaker, nearly stood up because he had been in prison, and it wasn't his fault. It was a terrible thing that happened, but he nearly stood up just by the man saying, have any of you here ever been in prison? He felt compelled. He wasn't a criminal. It was a not a motoring offence, but he'd crashed a tank, basically. Okay, over 3 cars, right? And so he went into a military prison when he was in the army. So it wasn't because he was a bad person. I need to emphasise that. Anyway, he nearly stood up, and then he listened to Mitch give the rest of his speech, and he'd written best-selling books. This person, and he was about to go off to university and then become a school teacher. And because of that 45-minute speech by Mitch, he gave up his university career and became a professional speaker full-time. He now does about 200 speeches a year, and I think Cindy definitely knows who I'm talking about now. And he's come to training by me, I have to say as well. He's bought some of my CDs, he's been to training days by me, and he's eager to learn to be a better speaker. Do I like his voice? No. but he's got a very good message and he delivers it well. And he was inspired by 45 minutes with Mitch's voice. It just electrified him. It was so incredibly good. That's the power of the voice, because it wasn't what Mitch looked like. You know, Mitch is overweight, very burned, and in a wheelchair. And his voice.
He's a lovely chap.
He's lovely, isn't he, Sim?
He's a lovely guy. He's a lovely guy, and he's actually used his voice to the best. Because I actually got to go out and meet him, and we actually went for dinner afterwards with 2 other speakers.
Yeah.
And one of the speakers was actually asking him for his advice on how to better his presentation skills. And he was very lovely, because he said he was very lovely, because he said, well, you should be asking Cindy. What do you think, Cindy? So I just looked at him, gave a little, I said, well, you need to pause. And just quick as a lightning, he sat there, looked at me for 10 minutes. He said, yep, 10 seconds, which felt like 10 minutes. He said, yep, it's all about the pauses. If you want to make it more dramatic, make the pause longer.
Yeah.
And it's sort of like, he's very, very good, and a very effective use of his voice, totally.
And I've bought him a few beers at conventions, and he is fun to be with. Now, it's interesting. He does his story is his main speech, and he's been doing it for 17 years. The same speech, if you like, but he alters various bits of it, and he adds bits to it, and he takes bits away, and he thinks about keeping it fresh all the time. So anytime you see Mitch talk, you're getting something new, because he's thinking about it all the time, and he's focusing on giving value. And when you hear his voice, there's such a richness and warmth and honesty about his voice, not about his look, not about his clothes he's wearing, not because he's got the most wonderful wheelchair in the world. No, let's get real here. Not because of his haircut, not because of his nose. It's because of who he is, and it bursts out of him. And he's a very, very good example. And I hope lots of people just look up W. Mitchell. Anyone who hasn't listened to him, just watch bits of him on YouTube. That is a very powerful voice, and it's a very powerful human being. And
I love his attitude as well. So would you say the voice, what he's done is he's crafted his voice to go along with the attitude, so that people just don't see the wheelchair anymore. They actually see and they hear what he's trying to do. Because if I recall correctly, his message is, it's not the 5 things I can't do, it's the other 995 things that I can still do.
Not quite. No, he said,
okay.
I used to be able to do 10,000 things, and there's 1,000 I can't do anymore. I focus on the 9,000. Oh,
okay.
Perfect. And that's the same for all of us. You know, I'm never going to run a marathon. I wouldn't dream of running a marathon, but I do like my weight training and I like my biking. But I'm not particularly good at dancing, but I like to dance a bit, right? I'm not going to take it seriously. I do it as a fun thing, and I go for dancing lessons every now and then. But I'm not going to think, oh, yeah, I've got to change my whole life for dancing. No, because it's not me. It's not what I do. And actually, years ago, I was married, and then I was divorced. And my brother-in-law, one of my brothers-in-law, ran a family farm, a large family farm. And he's about 6'3", whatever that is in meters. I've got no idea, but he's big and broad and strong. And he looked after my daughter for 2 days while I was away doing a speech, and my ex-wife was away doing something else at the other end of the country. And so she came back and she said, why don't you go and help X on the family farm? I said, well, I can help him do his internet. I can help him use his Macintosh. I can help him to speak better and work better with the people who work for him on the farm, which is what his wife had suggested I do. Why would I go and dig post holes and put up fences for him? That is not my expertise. He has other people who are big and strong who can do that for him. I can come from my expertise, my area of skill, to help him to do things. And I think when anybody's using their voice for their business, whether it's Blab or any other type of business, you've got to think, what am I going to deliver, and how much do I care about it? How much do I want to actually give something to someone? Because if you don't want to give it, go away. It's that simple. And if I can come in there about public speaking fear at that point, rather than just voice exercises, people are afraid of speaking in public because they don't know how to. That's all.
Yeah. Well, it's like anything.
Yeah. And
it's the unknown that creates the fear. It's like I flew as a pilot for many years with the airlines, and sometimes I'd have passengers come. I'd have the cabin crew come and say, "Captain, we've got a lady. She's afraid of flying. So bring her up to the flight deck."
Yeah. And
we'd sit her down. And in the days when you still could have people on the flight deck, and I just explained to her how the plane worked. And within 10, 15 minutes, she saw, oh, it's simple. I said, yeah, it's simple.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
and you saying that, actually, there's somebody who's actually was a very close friend of Cindy's once upon a time, and he's still a friend, and he's written a book, or part written a book, about public speaking being the greatest fear in the world. So no names, no pack drills. Cindy knows who I mean. It's not true. It's not true that speaking in public is the greatest fear people can have. Now, I've tested this with lots of audiences, and I'm great. Fabrizio's here. I need to target this exactly on Fabrizio, because unfortunately, Fabrizio has done a lot of speaking. He's very confident about speaking. However, the other fact is that Fabrizio is a pilot. Right. Great. Stick with that, everybody. Fabrizio is a pilot. Now, I've asked lots of audiences in Britain, all over Britain and Ireland and Iran, would they rather land a helicopter after the pilots jumped out the window or give a 10-minute speech about themselves? There was only one person who said they'd prefer to land a helicopter, and he was a helicopter pilot. And it's that simple. When you've learned the techniques, there's no reason for fear. And the other thing, if you're afraid when you're speaking in public, that's about you. It's about your ego, and you shouldn't be there for you. And I'm actually quite fanatical about that. You're supposed to be there for them. Nobody else.
Yeah. When you've got an audience, you've got to, that audience has to go away. I mean, I spoke on Sunday. I'm not speaking for my church, and I happen to have to give a speech on Sunday. And the people that preceded me speaking bought into some of my time. So I then ended up having a 20-minute speech, having to deliver it in 5 minutes, which was interesting. But at the end of the day, I thought to myself, okay, I need to come across with a message that's going to give the people here in the audience something to go home and do, and some action points. And I managed to get that message across in 5 minutes, because as you said, it's not about me, it's about them. What are they, as a result of hearing me, what are they going to be able to take home and apply in their lives and get results? And that's what counts. Yeah.
And if that's in your voice, like we were talking about W. Mitchell just now, the audience will feel it.
Yeah, and feel it. Correct. Feel it. Yeah. Not hear it, feel it.
Yeah, they'll feel like Robin. As I said, I was in a chat with Robin the other day, and yes, she's got a nasal voice, but I can hear her passion as well as her expertise. I can hear the fun of her. I can hear the excitement of her. I can hear the warmth of her in her voice, and that's really important. Now you can enrich your voice by getting the chest voice working properly as well, so that everybody gets what you're doing. It's not that it makes it more generic. It just makes your voice available, and you available to more people. W. Mitchell's voice is available to virtually anyone on this planet. And hopefully mine's quite good as well. But he's got such a richness about him. You want to keep listening. Whatever he's saying.
So, Fergus, going back to what you were saying to me before. So I have to get this microphone, my Rode microphone, and I have to plug the headset in. And
into the side of it.
Yeah, into the side. And I've got to sort of start speaking from down here. And doing that kind of exercise and listening to myself. Yeah,
definitely.
Okay, so what shall I read from a book, or read nursery rhymes, or what?
Yes, and Shakespeare. And believe it or not, the King James Bible.
Oh, I've got that. Yeah, no problem. King James Bible.
Now, the reason why the King James Bible, very, very short history lesson here. It was when it was being put together by two branches of the Church of England for the king. It was the only brilliant thing that king ever did. You know, starting the witch trials wasn't nice, but getting the James Bible put together by the hardcore fundamentalists and the hardcore progressives in the church, it worked, because he said, go away and put the Bible into a more modern context. And so they went to all the old Bibles in Greek and Latin, and the English ones. There are plenty of them around. And what they did, they wanted it to sound incredible, okay? Because most people weren't allowed to read it. They just had to listen to a priest doing it. So what they did, they thought, we want it to sound old and authentic. They didn't change the meanings of many things. They did change some, but not all of them. I'm glad you like listening to me, Robin, because I'll be talking forever if you like. And so,
pack it in.
Sorry, I can't resist that. Okay, so what they did, they wanted it to sound old-fashioned, authentic, so they wrote it using the rhythms of about 80 or 90 years before, namely Shakespeare's time. And so they used archaic language and all the rhythms of English, which Shakespeare was the ultimate genius of. Rule of three, pausing, speeding up, slowing down. It's written in such a way that it makes you be resonant. Like, here's one example of the rule of three nested 7 times, 8 times. Count it, everybody.
Yeah.
In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God.
Never noticed that before.
Okay, so it's 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. Now that's clever because it leaves the last one hanging. So you've got 6 lines of 3. In other words, you've got 2 sets of 3 lines, and then you've got a line which is only 2 words because nothing comes after God. So the last word is God. And there's a lot in the Bible that's been written in that way to make it really resonant and strong and powerful. So you don't have to be Christian to use it as a training tool. And likewise, you don't have to be a Shakespearean actor to use, like, for example, now is the winter of our discontent made glorious summer by this sun of York, and all the clouds that loud o'er our house, deep in the bosom of the ocean buried. Right, that's the opening of Richard III. Now, think of the resonance of that, the richness of it. And that's a great one, the opening of Richard III. If you buy my CDs, everybody, I've got lots of examples from Shakespeare and some from the Bible that you can learn from, literally. Also, something like The Raven by Edgar Allan Poe. It is, I told a client of mine a few years ago, I said, it's one of the hardest things to read, and I'll send anyone a copy of it because I've recorded it, of course. I need to re-record it because I can do it better now. It was 3 years ago. I know I can do it better. But, well, it's because Cindy's a great friend of mine, and she insisted I came on Blab, Robin. She just said, Fergus, you need to be on Blab with me. Okay, because she only chooses the best, she said. So flattered me so much, I had to say, okay, I'll come then if you think I'm the best. Okay.
No, only have people that have content and actually useful, because the whole point is launching next week. We'll talk about this at the end, but the whole point is actually to bring on people that can actually help the conferencing industry, event organizers, speakers, to actually give a better experience to the audience, because that's what they've come for, is the whole experience. And if a conference organizer can pick up a tip on how to use speakers better, use the venue better, use the AV equipment better, if speakers can use the AV equipment better and the venue better and speaking better, then it just means the audience has a better time, and they come back and they buy more and they're engaged more with who they're there to see and listen to. So that's the whole idea. So Fergus is going to be helping me on that. So we'll have more and more tips and tricks coming through with that as well. So
interesting.
I've got a special request.
Interesting, Fergus, you're talking about the Shakespearean actors, because I know that a lot of the actors that played in Star Trek came from a Shakespearean background. William Shatner did, and also the guy that played Captain Picard, Patrick
Stewart. Yeah.
Patrick Stewart. Yeah. And he's got a nice voice.
Yes, he has, and he still does a lot of stuff on the stage in the West End of London. Yes, Patrick Stewart does very engage, Mr. Data.
Yeah.
And Robin wants to hear
The Raven.
Once upon a midnight dreary, as I pondered weak and weary over many a blah 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 blah. That's it. That's all you're getting for now. Suddenly there came a tapping, as of someone gently rapping, tap 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 rapping on my chamber door. 'Tis some visitor, I muttered. Merely this and nothing more. Some lost visitor tapping at my chamber door. Something like that. I love it. But anyway, I got a client. I said to a client, try reading The Raven. It's very, very hard to read. And the client said, oh, it looks easy to me. I said, go do it. Yeah. And a week later, they came back to me and said, oh, my God, it's the hardest thing I've ever read. Now, the reason is, to do The Raven properly, You have to speed up and slow down. And sometimes it's like a tongue twister. Sometimes you're like a skier going downhill fast. And other times you have to walk very slowly. Oh, Josie, my darling Josepha's here. Hello, darling. I didn't know you'd be coming in here. Well, she hardly ever answers her phone to me because she's so busy all over the world. So I'm delighted that she's come in here. Is that you, Joss?
You're welcome to jump in, because it's, well, hopefully, can you come in? You can more than welcome to come in, because one of the questions whilst just taking a small pause, how do you know you've got the right voice for what you're trying to do and what you're trying to portray, and that your inner voice is truly coming out with where you are and what you're trying to do?
The way I learned to get my inner voice out, I'd been an actor, right, fine, and then I was an electronics engineer, fine. But when I got recordings from my father's career as an actor, I heard some of the poems and I thought, I wonder, can I do them as well as he did? Because obviously as a small child, I was quite overshadowed by my playwright, radio presenter, actor father, even though I became a star and he didn't, okay, which caused some friction in the house. So I listened to some of these recordings he'd done. I just listened to a little bit of them. And then I made my own copies of these poems. I listened to his recordings and I listened to my own. And I was delighted to say, this sounds horrible probably, I preferred mine because he was dead by then. But what happened was I kept listening to my own recordings. I got carried away and I recorded them over and over again and listening to them on headphones and on loudspeakers. And suddenly I became so aware of my own voice and making it do what I wanted it to do that I could take the headphones off, because I've now got perfect feedback from what I do here and what I know everybody else hears. Then you've got the inner voice on the outside, if that answers your question, Cindy.
Okay. No, that's so I've basically just got to sit and go through the pain of actually listening to myself then.
Yeah.
Really.
Well, and re-recording and re-recording and re-recording. Take something short. Yeah, James Earl Jones. I actually met a huge West Indian 19-year-old at a Toastmasters meeting about 10 years ago. And they said, would he do an icebreaker? Just stand up and introduce himself to the audience of about 40 people. And he stood up and he said, hi, my name is Errol. And I thought, oh, my God, he's James Earl Jones, come to London. And I said it to him after. He said, funny enough, other people have said that about me as well. He had this incredibly rich voice, and it worked.
Okay.
Because it's the rich depth that counts. Think of Tony Robbins. Hi, it's Tony Robbins. He's not down there by birth. Well, he is actually 6'7", but he makes sure his voice stays right down there all the time, because that's where the power is.
Do you think Tony Robbins had his voice coached, or is that his natural voice?
Actually, he's been coached by two people.
Oh, okay.
Roger Love, who's a very, very good voice coach. I respect Roger Love very much, ex-Shakespearean actor. And also, yes, Josepha, thank you. Yes, I was Josepha's voice coach, because she used to sound like a schoolmistress. And I took that out of her voice. I bullied her into sounding like the real Josepha. And her voice is now wonderful. And she does lots of radio. She does lots of presentations. She does recordings. And of course, because she's done a lot and she had some good guidance years ago from me, she's just flown. She has really flown. And she's still
very, very lovely to chat to on the telephone. I spent quite a while with her. And that is where I have found the best thing about having the right voice is when you're doing a lot of telephone work, being able to stay on the phone with somebody and not have your ears hurting afterwards really does count.
Yeah, yeah.
Especially in our game and what we're trying to do.
Oh, thanks, Jaws, saying I was excellent, the best ever. Thank you. It's much better if Cindy and Josepha market me rather than I market myself. So I don't mind at all.
Well, I'm interested in more sort of like with Fabrizio. Sorry, I'm so
Fabrizio.
bad at saying it. Fabrizio.
Actually, no, you've got to say it English. Fabrizio, mate. Fabrizio.
Well,
Fab is the short version. And that's easy.
Fab.
Internationally, I find that's the easy one for everybody.
No, oh gosh, yes. Okay.
Quite nice for you as well, isn't it?
No, I was sort of like a little bit more interested in with the work that you do, and how you're actually finding. Have you had any problems, or how you use your voice effectively to command the audience?
Well, I mean, first of all, I mean, I'm not a professional speaker in the sense that I don't make a living out of speaking. I do about 10 speaking engagements a year. What my main profession now is buying and selling aircraft. But I do deal. I do deal with a lot of billionaires and their right-hand men or women or whatever, depending on how the deal's going. And it's interesting speaking to these people.
Does your voice change when you do that?
I don't know, but the interesting thing about me is that when I speak Italian, quando io parlo italiano, per esempio, la mia voce quando parlo italiano è completamente diversa da quando parlo inglese. So you just notice there that my voice changed completely when I speak Italian. And a few people have said that to me. So, because when I speak Italian, I speak with an Italian accent. When I speak English, I speak with an English accent. So I find that interesting. And probably the tone of my voice changes as well. Now, how come it goes that way? I haven't got a clue.
Okay. Which language did you learn fast, Fabrizio? Mr. Fab. Which one did you learn first?
No, English. I learned Italian when I was 8.
Okay. On this very topic, I've got a friend who left England at the age of about 17 and travelled the world, and then settled in Luxembourg for 3 years and in France for the next 15 years, actually, and became totally knowledgeable of the French language. Obviously, French language, French culture, went to the University of Nancy, still a very good friend of mine, and very, very clever on voice, on the technology of voice, and used to work with me a lot in my business. Now, unfortunately, works somewhere else. However, when she speaks French, she sounds much deeper and older. I don't mean in a bad way. When I first knew her, not now, when I first met her about 9 years ago, because she'd gone away with a 17-year-old's English voice, and then her maturity came in her French voice. And so what I helped her to do was get that maturity of her adult French voice into her English voice, which is now fantastic because it sounded girlish, 15, 16, 17-year-old, because she went into French to such an extent that she had the leftover voice of a child almost. Yeah. But the adult voice was French. So that's what. And Fab, also, I had a client and also an ex-girlfriend who was a jumbo jet captain, which I think you'd agree is a pretty high level of pilot.
Yes.
And they'd written a book about themselves and their career, and they wanted me to help them to speak better. Yeah,
because when you come over with a PA to the passengers, you've got to come across with this authority. And I've had my fair share of misbehaving passengers, and I had to sort of come across extremely sit down, shut up, or you get arrested when we get on the ground kind of thing. And I've had to do that a couple of times.
Yeah. And you think this was a woman captain of jumbo jets, so had to be very strong with their voice.
Yeah.
And they actually were very good at doing Just So stories by Rudyard Kipling. Very funny, very good at doing those perfectly. And various bits of poetry, because they'd done them all their lives. This person had done it all their lives. So therefore, they were brilliant at certain things. I just taught her how to take it into other things like Shakespeare, because we've all got some vocal skills that we can spread into the rest of our voice.
Yeah.
Literally.
Interesting you say that, because when I was in Italy, in order to make the money to pay for my flight training, when I finished at aviation college and I needed to get the rest of my licenses, I went into teaching English as a foreign language. And one of the things I noticed, it was very difficult for Italian people to acquire an English accent when they spoke English. So I started looking into neurolinguistic programming and everything. And I came up with this system where I thought, in order to speak English, you've got to understand the cultural difference between an English person and an Italian person. And one of the interesting things I always used to explain is that Italian language has less words than the English language, but the Italian language has more words to explain emotions than the English language. So what does that tell you? The Italian people are more emotional. So what happens to your voice when there's more emotion involved? It tends to go higher and you speak faster. So I said, so being Italian, if you want to speak English with an English accent, you've got to slow down and you've got to lower your voice. So imagine you're speaking in front of a lit candle. And so I'd use nursery rhymes like Humpty Dumpty sat on a wall. And I used to give this lecture to my students. And within an hour, their accent was changed completely and it would maintain it that way. Even speaking to some of my former students 20 years later now, they still have that accent. Because it's that basic concept of understanding what is a language. It's an expression of culture. So what's the cultural difference? And I always used to say every language has a music to it, and the music in a way represents the culture. If you think German, it very sounds very like a lot of authority there and order, and Japanese is kind of similar. Then you think of Spanish or French or Italian, which is very musical and emotional. You think of English, which seems very calm and organized. Well, that represents the culture. And so explaining these things and going back into what you were saying before, how important the voice is and how important language and the sound and the music of your voice or of a language tells you a lot about the culture.
I would say it's MOV, musicality of the voice. I don't like acronyms, but that's one I invented. Musicality of the voice, MOV.
Yeah.
Now, there are reasons which I won't cover today because there's no time for that, why different languages have, for example, in England, you've got very northern Scottish people who have a soft accent. You've got Glaswegians who have a harsh accent. And you've got the Welsh who have a very lyrical accent. And you've got Northern Irish who've got a very sharp accent, very like Glaswegian. And you've got the west coast of Ireland, like a friend of Cindy's and mine, Molly Harvey, who's an ex-president of the Professional Speaking Association, who, oh, my darling, she's got a lovely west coast of Ireland accent. Now, there are scientific reasons why accents change, even within one language, and why some languages sound harsher than others. And I will cover those in a different presentation another time, because there are some really fascinating reasons, physical reasons. It's not just the culture, although the culture is part of it. It's also to do with the environment. But as I said, I'll do it another time. Hi, Karen. Okay, I'll cover that another time, really, because I could literally, if everyone was going to stay here, I could pour probably 100 books worth of stuff that I've learned.
I was going to say, you're an encyclopedia of the voice.
I'm afraid so.
Well,
okay, about
don't forget, we are going to do more. We'll do other things as well, Fergus. So I'm going to say no. We're not going to do it now.
I can do the technology. I can do all sorts of things. Okay, hang on. Yeah, we will. LinkedIn, believe me, we will keep doing it. And Cindy's the boss of this. Cindy's dragged me in here. She's a great friend of mine. I've known her for 10, 12 years, something like that. Cindy's in charge. So Cindy will be the one who tells everybody. So you watch Cindy. You follow Cindy, because whatever she says is right. I have to say. Anyway,
you just want another blab, don't you?
Yeah, lots of other blabs. And I can do all the technology of speaking, and I don't just mean the Rode NT USB. No, there's a lot of other things about the technology, which I will certainly be doing. When Cindy wants me to do something about event organizing, about technology for speakers, how to use a microphone, how to use a lapel mic, so-called, and they're not, right? A lapel mic is not a lapel mic. I'll be very, very happy to show people how to use the technology, but that's for other occasions. I'll shut up now, because I was going to answer Fab's thing about people speaking faster or slower in different languages. Nope. They're always between 2.6 and 3.5 words per second, max. Really. And that's been tested, and there's somebody I know well, Cindy knows well, who does voice training, and he agrees with me on this, because he used to be an engineer and his father was an ear, nose and throat surgeon, so he must be good as a voice coach, but he sticks to the technicalities of it. And his first name's Chris. Okay, Cindy, you know who I mean. But he's very good on the technicalities of the voice, and he's right. All languages, all our European languages anyway, the reason that for us, German and Scandinavian languages and Dutch sounds slower to us is because we detect word gaps, although there aren't any gaps actually. Whereas if it's Italian or Spanish or even French, the Romance languages, we don't know them so well because they're not so related to English. So we think they're speaking more quickly, word for word per minute. They're not. It's just we don't get it. So we think they're speaking quicker. That's all. Yeah. That's all it is.
Yeah.
Little nugget there.
Yeah.
Wow. More. I'm just going to quickly say, if there is anybody who's recently joined us, if you'd like to jump in, please feel free. We've had quite a few lovely, interesting information and anything else. Just very quick, is there another exercise I could do for the end of the day to rest the voice or get it warmed down, for a better word?
Actually you could. One thing people say, what should they do if they've lost their voice or if they're starting to lose their voice? Okay, if you're doing any sort of presentation, so this is for the end of the day as well, do not have iced water ever, whether you're doing a presentation or at the end of the day. Okay.
Yeah.
Do not have drinking chocolate. Okay.
Because you mean hot chocolate?
Yeah. Don't. Because it will dry your throat out. That's the worst thing. Do not take hacks and tunes and cough lozenges because they'll dry your throat and make you cough. They'll clean your nose out, but they will. I was recording some books for the National Listening Library years ago, and I'd always loved hacks, which is a particular type of cough sweet in England. And I'd eaten one just before I went into the studio, blown my nose, everything's nice and clear. So I went in there, within 10 minutes, I had a dry throat and a tickle. And I suddenly thought, this is not a good thing to do. And there are Susan Berkeley, who's a very good voice coach. She trained Bill Clinton, so she would be quite good.
Yeah.
And I've
all politicians have
most?
Yeah.
It wasn't, I thought it was Patsy Roddenberry or Cicely Berry had trained Margaret Thatcher. Cicely Berry is a left-wing lady who wouldn't have dreamt ever of training Maggie Thatcher. And she's lovely, Cicely, but no, there's no way she would have ever trained Maggie. And she didn't. And it wasn't Patsy Roddenberry, who's another one of the few really good coaches. She's American, but she lives in England. It was an American woman trained Maggie Thatcher to take her voice down. And she took it down about half an octave to an octave. Yeah, Josefa knows the people I'm talking about, Sis and Patsy. She knows them because, of course, I've recommended them to her and she's read them and she's listened to them and so on.
Interesting, Fergus, interesting you say this because my father was one of the apprentices of Vidal Sassoon, the famous hairdresser.
Yeah.
And Vidal came from the East End of London. So when he decided he was going to have a salon in the West End side, he realized that his accent wasn't good enough. So he went to a voice coach. When my father joined Vidal Sassoon, his English wasn't very good because he came from Italy. And so one of the things Vidal said to him, said, you need to get a voice coach. So my dad went to this voice coach to learn to speak posh English because he was cutting hair of the top people in London. And so again, what you said, the voice is really important. Vidal Sassoon did it and my father followed in his footsteps.
Yeah. Because I don't know if Trump was trained by anyone. It's probably quite likely. Also, if you think people in England, the recent leader of the Labour Party, the Socialist Party in England, Ed Miliband. Yeah. I met up with him when he was doing a presentation for party members and the press, and there were only about 30 of us in the room. And of course, I wanted to give him some training and be paid by him, which never happened. But his challenge was that his mouth, he had a lazy tongue. Now, it doesn't mean he's lazy, but the perceived value of his voice was lazy. And we had a conservative leader, William Hague, a few years ago, who I've interviewed, who is an absolutely brilliant after-dinner speaker, not about politics, but about all sorts of other things. He's very funny. He's very clever. And I met up with him at a sort of fundraiser of the Conservative Party. But because he had a very calm Yorkshire accent, he wasn't taken seriously as a speaker at the dispatch box, whereas Tony Blair had been to Fetters Grammar and actually had a very posh voice, but he flattened his vowel sounds to sound Essex. So, yeah, I can promise you education, education, and education. Now, that wasn't the way he grew up, that accent. He learned it and he put it on. And he was a very successful leader of the Labour Party and very successful as Prime Minister. I'm not talking about his politics, believe me, or his personality. I'm just talking about his success level.
So did he bring his level of voice down to be more in tune with people that vote Labour? Because if he sounded too posh, they wouldn't vote him.
Exactly. And if there was a Labour Prime Minister, which hardly anybody here will have heard of, in the 1960s called Harold Wilson from Lancashire. And he had
That's where I am right now. I live in Lancashire.
Okay, well, I lived in Yorkshire for 6 or 7 years, so believe me, Fab, I can do a very good Yorkshire accent. Now then, North Yorkshire. Okay, I can do a good North Yorkshire accent. Okay, lad. Anyway, Harold Wilson, when he was Prime Minister, had a really good Lancashire accent, and okay, the pound in your pocket's not going to be devalued, and people voted for him. Then I saw some old films from about 1946, 47, when he was in the coalition government just after the war, or the Labour government just after the war. And he was speaking terribly like this. He had a very posh accent. And then he realised that to become the leader of the Labour Party, he had to dumb down his voice. And that's exactly what Tony Blair did later on.
Okay, yeah.
And it's funny, one of my favourite Conservative politicians, again, I'm not saying he'd be great as a politician or as a prime minister, was a man called Malcolm Rifkind, who was terribly well-spoken. And he was wonderful in every interview. He was polite, he was kind, but his voice was probably too posh. So he went back to banking. He left politics and went back to banking. And he may have been a great loss to the party, he may not. But he came across as a really nice man, but his voice was far too posh. And so he didn't get the job, basically. That was it.
So going back to your voice, you say don't drink hot chocolate, don't eat mince. What can we drink to keep our voice?
Thank you, Fab. Yeah, because that was Cindy's question. Sorry, Cindy. Yeah. Thank you, Fab, for bringing it back on. Okay. You can have honey and lemon.
Honey and lemon, okay, yeah.
Hot. That's really good. If your throat is at all sore, you get a nice big spoonful of honey and some lemon and some boiling water and stir it well and sip it. I don't think Kate has had voice coaching. I had to go on to Sky News. They called me in to give a review of her first speech, actually.
Okay, yeah.
And so there I was on the Adam Bolton show at lunchtime at Sky, and I said, well, it's pretty hard to call it a speech, actually. It was less than 3 minutes long, and most of that was pauses. So she's not a speaker, and she's quite nervous as a speaker. And I remember, actually, it was when Prince Charles, interestingly, Harold Wilson resigned, and on the same day, Prince Charles's investiture as Prince of Wales was announced. And he was suddenly interviewed for the first time, age about 21, Prince Charles, and he had this deep, rich, calm voice. And I thought, whoa, that is a good voice. It's really deep and rich and calm. And people in England remember the Queen got it. Oh, yeah, please, everybody in the world, don't think about the King's English or the Queen's English, okay? Because that's not good English. It really isn't. It's a stylized presentation for royalty and upper aristocracy, and it won't work for most people. When I was living in Yorkshire, on it was only about 20 acres, and we had various garages and things. I haven't got any of that, by the way, everybody. My ex-wife had it all, and a man came round to get me to join the Countryside Alliance, right? Okay, hello, Fergus. Would you like to join? You can pay X amount of money. And he's talking away to me in the orchard. And I said, do you know what I do for a living? I couldn't resist it. He said, no, what do you do? I said, I teach people to speak better. Oh. So how do you think I speak then? I've just been talking to you about the Countryside Alliance. I hope you do join. So how do you think I speak? I said, well, it works for people with your accent, but I doubt that it works for many farmers around here. He said, oh, it's quite funny you said that, actually, because a few days ago I was talking to some farmers, and as I walked away, I heard them say, bosh git. What a surprise. Yeah. And I was at a clay pigeon event with about 9 Scottish farmers. And, of course, they were way better at shooting the clay pigeons than me, because they're shooting all day, every day, virtually. And one of them suddenly said to me, so, Fergus, who's got the better English, you or us? And which is the most real English, yours or us? And I said, well, actually, if I was going to come to a farm and I wanted you to work with me, you would be in charge. I'd need to get to your accent to a certain extent. I don't mean mimic you, but I need to soften my London accent. Now, when I was talking to Robin earlier, her voice is specific to an area. And I speak what's sometimes called standard Southern English, and it isn't posh. I can do posh if you want. Now, this is posh. I can easily do posh. Everyone can do posh. Now, if I'm speaking posh to everybody in the world, they think, oh, he's so posh, I can't stand him.
Yeah.
There's only a few thousand people in the world will like that accent. However, if I'm at a dinner party with some of them, oh, good Lord, really? I will slide into it with them, I must admit. And when I'm in Ireland, I do tend to slip slightly into an Irish accent, I have to admit. I can't help it because I'm Irish. But, yeah, you have to share with the people you're with, and you have to listen Actually, I said this on our last chat, didn't I, Cindy? One of the greatest secrets for a speaker is the ability to listen. Literally.
Pardon?
Oh, Cindy. Yeah. You have to listen to be able to speak.
You have to listen.
Yeah.
And do the pauses. And give people time for the brain to actually take in board the information, digest it, process it, and then kind of think, okay, I need the next bit now.
I hope everybody's reading the wonderful stuff Joseph is saying about me in the column. Okay, sorry about the drinks. About the drinks again. Okay.
Yeah. So we got
no
hot
tea.
honey and lemon. Yeah, no tea. Okay, yeah.
No tea. And
no coffee.
Well, funnily enough, a lot of people say no coffee, and you'd think that's logical. But if I was doing a recording of 5 or 6 hours of a book, after about 2.5 hours, my throat would get a little bit dry. And so what I would do, I'd have a cup of instant coffee with lots of sugar in it. And then I could carry on for another 2 or 3 hours, because a sugary drink, which is why orange juice is very good.
Oh, orange juice is good. Okay.
Room temperature orange juice is fantastic.
Okay.
Because it's especially natural orange, not squashes if you can avoid it. Just ordinary. It can be processed orange. It doesn't have to be chunky. Yeah. But the whole no tea, no fert. Sorry, no, I have to call you fert. I know that's rude, but fertile. Okay. No tea, because if you think.
Call her Helena.
Helena, the first. Oh, that's better actually. Okay, Helena. Yeah. Okay. It's one of my favourite names actually, Helena. Although in Orphan Black, there's a character called Helena who's, oh my goodness, but never mind. Helena is a gorgeous name.
Sorry.
Anyway,
Helena.
Coming back from
Helena.
Oh, Helena.
Helena. Sorry.
Okay.
Is that the correct? Right.
Helena. Helena. Okay, fine. Sorry about that. Yeah, my sister's called Marisa, and a lot of people call her Marissa, and she gets quite upset. But then when I was a child, I had a dog who had a Tibetan name called Mipam, and people used to call him Mipam. So the dog didn't like that either. So never mind.
Anyway,
sorry, Helena.
And back to the tea.
So back to the drinks. Okay. Orange juice, lemon juice, grapefruit juice are all fantastic.
Grapefruit juice. Yeah. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, it bites, you see.
I thought orange juice is one of those not to actually have because of it. Okay, honey and lemon I get, but I was told orange juice, that is just as bad as if you used milk.
No, don't do milk.
No, milk is, it creates mucus.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. And also...
What about straight water?
Yes, if it's room temperature. It must not be chilled.
Okay, room temperature water, okay.
And if you're doing a recording as well, see, Josepha knows all of these because I talked to her about it before. Okay, do not have fizzy water if you're about to go into a recording studio or into a radio studio. Yeah. Because what will happen, I'm not talking about belching, but you'll get tiny bubbles coming up your throat. And believe me, no, it's not just burps, Dinah. It ain't. Not just burps. You'll get tiny little bubbles coming up your throat and they go...
Oops.
Like that. And so what will happen, the engineers will turn your microphone down. And so if you're in a studio with a presenter and 6 of you, and you're making funny noises in your throat, you won't be asked to talk much. You'll be left to one side.
Oh.
Because the control room will hear your microphone, but they'll turn it down for the public, and they'll tell the presenter not to talk to you much until your noises stop, basically.
Wow.
So do they then feed people the fizzy stuff in the green room if they really don't want them to talk much?
Yes, they probably do. I hadn't thought of that. Yes, I don't know that for certain, but that would fit.
Crafty.
Oh, yeah. Mouth sounds, Helena, and clicking. I remember I was recording a book for the National Listening Library. He said, "Stop, Fergus." I said, "What?" He said, "I heard some saliva between your 2 front teeth." So, oh, no. I was 18 inches, 2 feet away from the microphone as I was reading this book. So, yeah, mouth sounds are really hard. One of the things to do for mouth sounds, preferably using an electric toothbrush on the morning before you go into a studio. Use an electric toothbrush to really clean your teeth well and your gums, and use mouthwash, because that makes your teeth slippery. And by the time you get to the stupid, So stupid. To the studio.
Yeah.
To the stupid place. Right? By the time you get to the studio, your mouth will have got used to that, and your saliva will have reduced, and then you'll be able to speak normally. Yeah, not alcohol either. Definitely no. Definitely no. Oh no! I could.
Actually,
Does everybody want to hear an alcohol story about me doing a recording?
oh, go on.
Okay, it's very short. It's very short. Okay, it was before I got married, and I was staying at my ex-wife's house, my fiancée's house, in Ealing, which is near Heathrow Airport, which everybody in the world has heard of. Heathrow Airport. It's very, very busy. So I couldn't do a recording there until about 2 a.m. And it was a disc of mine called Love and the Voice, which anybody can buy from me. Okay, right, Love and the Voice. And it's 38 minutes long. So I'd spent ages writing the script and getting the backing music ready. By midnight, I was exhausted. I want to go to sleep. And my wife said, well, I'm sorry. You've got to do it because I've got to take the master to the duplicators tomorrow morning at 10. So I will need it done tonight. Oh, thanks, Jen. And off she went to bed, right? So there I was, sitting in her living room. Finally, by 2 o'clock in the morning, all the cars had stopped and the aeroplanes had stopped, by which time I was exhausted. So I jacked myself up with some high-energy music. Dum, 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 dum. Everybody dance now. Right, I listened to some really high-energy music for about 15 minutes. That was it. Ooh, 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 ooh. I was full of energy, right? So I then did the recording. Blah, 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 blah. I did the whole thing, 38 minutes, bang, bang, bang. Went through it, edited all the little noises out, because you do get noises and coughs and flutters and the odd word goes wrong. And went to bed. And I lay in bed. I thought, this isn't going to work. This is all about love and the voice. And I'd done Love and the Voice. I thought, this isn't going to work. It was Valentine's celebration the next day, and I was wanting to sell a load of copies of this disc the next day at a presentation I was doing for about 60 people. So, Fergus at vocaltrademark.com is the one that works best, Josefa, even though the website's down at the moment, and I'll come begging to you again soon, I promise. Because Josefa's a great buddy, and she's helped me a lot. Okay, so I went back down to the living room, and I took a large glass of red wine. And I did what's called in English, necked it. I drank this large glass of red wine and took a few deep breaths. Thanks, John. Are you male or female? If you're male and you're saying I'm a sexy man, I do find that slightly unnerving. But if you're a woman, I don't mind. Anyway, so I drank my large glass of red wine and re-recorded the whole thing. Right, did the Oh, a man with boobs. Oh, well, John, I know 2 of those, and Cindy knows the same ones I know. Welcome to the club that I'm not in, but no problem with it, as far as I'm concerned. I did have man boobs, but I've been back to the gym now, so they've gone now. I just got muscles.
Yeah.
Anyway, come to your question in a sec. If you've got a question, John, great. The next morning, I was up at 8, because I don't sleep much anyway, and I was able to do the final edit, mix the background music, and when my ex-wife got up at 9, right, having slept for 10 hours, thank you, darling, she was able to go off to the duplicating company and get 100 copies made, put into the cases, which we already had with labels on them, and then we were able to sell quite a few of them at the event I went to. Now, I mentioned that true story at a presentation I did for Christopher Howard, who's sort of like Tony Robbins light, but he does some very good stuff, and it's easy to understand his stuff, and he's very skilled, actually, Chris. And I mentioned that story of that one of my discs, which normally sells much less than any of the others. Every single person in the room bought a copy of that disc to see if they could hear how drunk I was after that glass of red wine. I sold 80 copies of that disc that day. So, yes, no alcohol when you're about to go on the radio or do a presentation. No.
So is this Christopher Howard guy had any coaching as well for his voice?
I don't know. I've got no idea. I know Chris is a nice bloke, and friends of mine actually have worked for him a lot. And I've been to some of his seminars, and he is a nice bloke, and he does some very skillful timeline therapy. He's actually quite shy.
Yeah.
And He doesn't leap on the stage like Tony Robbins and punch his own chest and punch his own microphone so you get a big bang in the loudspeakers.
Yeah.
He doesn't do that sort of thing. So he's more accessible to women and gentle people than Tony Robbins is, because Tony Robbins is high power.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to criticize either of them. They've just got different styles.
Yeah, of course.
And I know two people. Edwin Coppard taught Tony Robbins to sing. Roger Love taught him to speak. And also Roger Love taught Barbara Streisand how to protect her voice after she lost it. And one of the things, if you've got a bad throat, right, you've got a sore throat, do not whisper, please.
Okay.
Whispering is the worst thing to do because it's actually quite a strain on the throat. It sends the air up your throat much faster than speaking. You want the resonance, relaxed resonance of your larynx doing the talking. So just talk a bit quieter, okay? Oh, yeah, antihistamines. Oh, my goodness, yeah.
Also, what about Bob Proctor? Have you heard Bob Proctor's voice?
I've worked for Bob Proctor.
Have you had alcohol in that drink there? You know.
I trained Bob Proctor's head of sales in England for a while, and so I got to go to a lot of his seminars free of charge.
Yeah,
and
I like Bob. I've met him. I think he's a really good guy. He's got a nice.
And also, somebody who's worked for Bob is Paul Martinelli. Now, Paul Martinelli.
Yeah, I've heard that name. Yeah.
Yeah, and he's got an incredible voice and a wonderful story about how he cured his own stutter by mistake. It's not my story to tell, but Paul Martinelli, I heard him do it once. I went to another seminar. I said, Paul, please do it again. I'll record it, which I did. And I've got the recording somewhere. And it's a wonderful story about how he accidentally cured his stutter. It's an incredible story. And yes, I can show people how to cure their stutters if they're interested. But that is for another day, isn't it, Cindy?
It's for another day. Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, we've actually been going for nearly 2 hours. So.
Oh, no, we were going to do 35 minutes. I'm sorry. Sorry, Sid.
Again. But don't worry. I mean, if you didn't have such fabulous content, I would have closed it down earlier anyway. So, but that's the whole point, is to actually create something that has content and that is actually watchable, replayable, usable, and come back to time and time again. And so, has anybody else got any other questions or any other things? Because I'd love to actually come back sometime next week and carry on and pick up a little bit more about what we're doing and sort of like take it to the next level about really bringing it into the event and the company, because most people have to do a presentation at some point, and others, if they're not presenting, they're having to organize the people that are doing the presenting, be it the PAs, the VAs, the conference organizers, through to either the CEOs having to do it. And so I think you've got some really good tips that would be valuable to all those type of people.
We will be back next week, Helena, and Cindy is the person in charge. I'll be delighted to keep coming back until I'm not getting 3,200 people looking at me each time.
But in the meantime, I think we've put up your email a little bit further below, so I'll recopy that and put that on the bottom again when we finish this, so at least it's then captured. And in the meantime, if anybody has any questions and they would like to get a bit of a hands up or some thoughts about what topics they'd like us to cover, please do tweet me, and if I can't get Fergus to cover it, then I'll find an expert, or somebody who I think he can actually add some good content to come on and be interviewed, so we can actually have an interactive chat. How's that? Yep.
Sounds brilliant, Sind.
Okay,
yeah, thank you.
I'm going to stop this recording. Oh, how do I